The X-ray screen flickered in the harsh fluorescent light of operating room 3. Dr. Rebecca Hayes stood frozen, scalpel trembling in her gloved hand. On the monitor, a gold band gleamed inside Thomas Sullivan's throat, lodged 3 inches below his larynx. Wrapped in angry, infected tissue, 90 seconds of oxygen left. The heart monitor screamed its frantic rhythm. Tom's lips had turned blue. His chest barely rose beneath the surgical drapes. Dr. Hayes, we need to intubate now. The anesthesiologist's voice cut through her paralysis. Rebecca's eyes fixed on the ring's engraving, visible even through layers of granulation tissue. Her hands shook something that hadn't happened in 20 years of surgery. Because she recognized that ring. Her mother had worn an identical one for 48 years. The same ring her mother had pressed into Rebecca's palm 6 months ago, whispering with her dying breath, "Find Thomas Sullivan. Tell him I never stopped loving him." This dying man was her father. Leave a like and share your thoughts in the comments along with the city you're watching. From now, let's continue with the story. Thomas Sullivan had been a ghost for 5 years. Not dead, but not quite living either. At 72, he haunted his own 3-bedroom house in Springfield's oldest suburb, where every corner whispered Margaret's name. His wife had died in the master bedroom on a Tuesday morning in March 20, and Tom had barely left the house since. He was tall, once 6'2" in his teaching days, but grief had bent him forward, rounding his shoulders like a question mark. His hair had gone silver white, and his blue eyes, once bright with literary passion, had faded to the color of old denim. He wore the same rotation of 4 flannel shirts, all too big now, hanging off a frame that had shed 40 pounds without him noticing. Every morning at 6, Tom made coffee for 2. It was muscle memory, nothing more. Margaret's mug sat across from his at the kitchen table, next to the stack of mail he never opened and the phone that never rang. He'd taught English literature at Springfield High for 34 years, had shaped hundreds of young minds, had been beloved by students who called him Mr. Sully. Now, those same students, grown with children of their own, crossed the street when they saw him at the grocery store. Not out of malice, out of discomfort. He looked like a man waiting to die. His children had their own lives. Sarah, his daughter, had married well and moved to Chicago. She was 45 now, a corporate lawyer with a corner office and a husband who drove a BM. She called once a month, always rushed, always guilty. "I'll visit soon, Dad. Things are just crazy right now." She hadn't been home since last Christmas. Michael, his son, lived 15 minutes away, but might as well have been on another planet. They hadn't spoken in 2 years, not since the fight about selling the house. Tom couldn't even remember what he'd said, only the way Michael's face had crumpled before he'd walked out the door. Tom's pride wouldn't let him apologize, and Michael's hurt wouldn't let him come back. The neighbors whispered. Old Mrs. Patterson next door left casseroles on his porch that he never ate. The mailman noticed the bills piling up. The lawn service that came every Sunday morning never sent an invoice, though Tom couldn't remember hiring them. He had $340,000 in the bank, Margaret's life insurance, but he lived on Social Security and coupons. He wore shoes with holes. He ate cereal for dinner. He deserved nothing more. Because 53 years ago, Tom Sullivan had loved a girl named Emily, and he'd let her go. The pain started on a Tuesday evening in early November. While Tom was making spaghetti, Margaret's recipe, he'd made it 1,000 times, always for 6 people, even though he ate loudly. The kitchen filled with the smell of garlic and tomatoes, and for a moment he could pretend she was still upstairs, reading in bed, waiting for him to call her down for dinner. He was draining the pasta when the first sharp stab hit his throat, like swallowing broken glass. Tom gripped the counter, waiting for it to pass. It didn't. The pain intensified, radiating down his esophagus in waves that made his eyes water. He tried to swallow, couldn't, tried to breathe, could barely manage it. The colander slipped from his hands, spaghetti spilling across the linoleum floor like pale worms. Tom staggered backward, one hand clutching his throat, the other reaching blindly for something to steady himself. His vision blurred. The kitchen tilted. He thought about calling for help. Then he thought about the ambulance, the hospital, the questions, the bills, the fuss. His children having to drop everything, having to see him like this weak, pathetic, dying over a pot of spaghetti. Pride comes before the fall. He'd taught that line from Proverbs for 30 years. Tom crawled toward the phone mounted on the kitchen wall. Each movement sent fresh agony through his chest. His fingers closed around the receiver, pulled it down. He dialed 911. When the operator answered, Tom tried to speak. Nothing came out but a wet, gurgling sound. He tried again. The same horrible noise, like drowning from the inside. Sir, can you hear me? What's your emergency? Tommy's hand opened. The phone clattered to the floor. The operator's voice continued, tiny and distant. Sir, I'm sending help to your location. Stay on the line, sir. But Tom was already unconscious, sprawled on the kitchen floor beside Margaret's spaghetti, his face turning blue. Mrs. Patterson heard the crash from next door. She was 78, a widow herself, and she'd been watching Tom Sullivan slowly die for 5 years. She'd brought him casseroles he never ate. She'd invited him to church socials he never attended. She'd knocked on his door during holidays to make sure he was breathing. Tonight, she didn't knock. She called 911 again. Then used the spare key Tom had given her years ago, back when Margaret was sick, back when he'd still trusted the world. She found him on the floor, blue-lipped and still. For a terrible moment, she thought he was dead. Then she saw his chest rise, barely, and heard that awful gurgling sound coming from his throat. Oh, Tom, she whispered, what have you done to yourself? The paramedics arrived 8 minutes later. Mrs. Patterson had done what she could, turned him on his side, checked his airway, held his hand, and talked to him even though he couldn't hear. The EMTs worked fast, professional and efficient. Oxygen mask, IV line. Vitals checked and called into the hospital. Possible foreign body obstruction, the lead paramedic said into his radio. Adult male, approximately 70 years old, unresponsive, cyanotic, blood pressure 70/40, and dropping. We're transporting to Springfield Memorial. They loaded Tom onto the gurney. Mrs. Patterson followed them to the door, still holding the wooden spoon she'd been using to make her own dinner. Is he going to be okay? The paramedic gave her the look she'd seen before, the one that meant, probably not. Are you family? No, just a neighbor. There's an emergency contact number on his refrigerator. Someone should call them. Mrs. Patterson went back inside Tom's house after the ambulance left. The kitchen was a disaster, spaghetti everywhere, water still dripping from the counter, the pot burned black on the stove. She turned off the burner, then went to the refrigerator. Held by a magnet shaped like an apple was a faded business card, Sarah Sullivan Chen, attorney at law, a Chicago number. Mrs. Patterson had never called it before, but she'd memorized it years ago, just in case. She dialed with shaking fingers. The phone rang 4 times before a polished professional voice answered. Sarah Sullivan Chen's office. This is Dorothy Patterson. I'm your father's neighbor. He's been taken to Springfield Memorial Hospital. It's an emergency. A pause. Then, I'm sorry. Ms. Sullivan Chen is in a meeting. Can I take a message? Tell her, Miss Patterson said, her voice hard, that if she wants to see her father, she needs to come now. She hung up before the assistant could respond. Dr. Rebecca Hayes was reviewing patient charts when her pager went off. Ear trauma. Foreign body obstruction. Adult male. Critical condition. She grabbed her stethoscope and headed downstairs, her footsteps echoing in the empty corridor. It was past 8 in the evening, and Springfield Memorial was quiet except for the usual hum of machinery and distant conversations. Rebecca had been at the hospital for 14 hours already, but that was normal. Work was easier than going home to an empty apartment and a cat who judged her life choices. The ER was chaos. 2 nurses were prepping the patient, calling out vitals that made Rebecca's stomach drop, blood pressure dangerously low, oxygen saturation at 82%, heart rate erratic. Talk to me, Rebecca said, snapping on gloves. 72-year-old male, found unresponsive in his home. The lead nurse reported, Neighbor called it in. Paramedics suspect foreign body obstruction. We've got him on oxygen, but he's not responding well. Rebecca moved to the bedside and looked down at the patient. Silver hair, gaunt face, tall frame, even lying down, blue eyes, currently closed, with deep lines round them that spoke of years of pain. Something in her chest tightened. Get me x-rays, she said. Chest and neck, both views, and page anesthesia. We might need to intubate. While the radiology tech positioned the portable x-ray machine, Rebecca reviewed the intake paperwork. Name, Thomas Sullivan. Age, 72. Emergency contact, Sarah Sullivan Chen. Daughter, Chicago. Thomas Sullivan. Rebecca's hands stilled on the clipboard. Her heart began to pound in a way that had nothing to do with the medical emergency in front of her. It couldn't be. It was a common name. There had to be thousands of Thomas Sullivans in America, but her mother's voice echoed in her memory. Soft and fading in those final weeks, his name was Thomas Sullivan. He taught high school English. He lived in Springfield. He had the kindest blue eyes. The x-ray machine hummed. Rebecca forced herself to focus. Personal feelings had no place in an emergency room. She'd built her entire career on that principle: professional distance, clinical precision. Emotions locked away where they couldn't interfere with judgment. The images came up on the monitor. Rebecca stepped closer, studying them with practiced eyes. There, in the esophagus, 3 inches below the larynx, a metallic object, clearly defined against the soft tissue. Not a coin, not a piece of food. The shape was too specific, too symmetrical. A ring. Rebecca zoomed in on the image. her pulse racing. The resolution was good enough to see detail. The band was engraved. She could make out letters, though they appeared backward on the scan. She traced the pattern with her finger point on the screen, reversing it in her mind. Forever, Emily, 72. The room tilted. Rebecca gripped the edge of the computer cart, her knuckles white. Forever, Emily, her mother's name. The year her mother turned 18, the year she got pregnant, the year everything changed. Rebecca's hand went to the chain around her neck, hidden beneath her scrubs. She pulled it out. Hanging from it was a simple gold band, worn smooth by decades of wear. Her mother had given it to her 6 months ago, 3 days before she died. "He gave me this when we were young," Emily had whispered. "Keep it. Remember that we loved each other once, before the world got in the way." Rebecca held the ring up to the monitor, comparing it to the X-ray image. Same width, same style, same engraving. She'd had it read under a jeweler's loupe years ago. Curious about the date that was 13 months before she was born, it was the same ring, but that meant Dr. Hayes. The nurse's voice cut through her thoughts. "He's crashing. BP 60 over 30. Rebecca shoved the ring back under her scrubs and moved on autopilot. Assess airway. Check for obstruction. The ring was lodged too deep for a simple Heimlich maneuver. They needed surgery, needed to remove it before it shifted and completely blocked his airway or perforated the esophagus. "Call the OR," Rebecca ordered. "We need to get him upstairs now. This is a surgical extraction." "Should we wait for Dr. Morrison?" the nurse asked. Morrison was the head of surgery, technically Rebecca's superior. "No time. I'm the best you've got for this procedure. And he's dying right now." Rebecca's voice was steady, betraying none of the turmoil beneath. "Schedule, or 3 for 3 a.m. I need time to review the scans and plan the approach. Keep him stable until then." As the team moved to transfer Tom to ICU, Rebecca pulled up his medical records on the computer, recent visits. One psychiatric evaluation 3 months ago. Patient reports intentional ingestion of object belonging to deceased loved one. Patient refused treatment. High risk for self-harm. 3 months ago, the same month her mother died. Rebecca's hands were shaking now. She clasped them together, hard, until the trembling stopped. The hospital administrator appeared at her elbow. "Dr. Hayes, the family is arriving. Someone needs to brief them." Rebecca looked through the glass at Tom Sullivan, her father, though he didn't know it. The man who'd abandoned her mother. The man her mother had loved until her last breath. The man whose life was now literally in Rebecca's hands. "I'll do it," Rebecca said quietly. "But first, I need to see those scans again." She had 3 hours to decide, should she save him or let nature take its course. Sarah's phone buzzed during the Jacobson deposition. She ignored it. It buzzed again and again. Her assistant cracked open the conference room door. "Mrs. Sullivan, Chen, I'm sorry to interrupt, but not now. Amanda." Sarah didn't look up from her notes. The Jacobson case was worth $2 million in billable hours. Nothing interrupted a deposition. "It's your father." The room went silent. Opposing counsel looked uncomfortable. The court reporter's fingers stilled on the keys. Sarah's stomach dropped. "What about my father?" "He's been taken to Springfield Memorial Hospital. The woman said it's an emergency. She said—" Amanda's voice dropped. "She said, if you want to see him, you need to come now." Sarah stood so fast her chair rolled backward and hit the wall. "Tell them we're rescheduling." Sarah?" her co-counsel started. "We can't just—" But Sarah was already gathering her things, hands shaking as she shoved papers into her briefcase. When was the last time she'd seen her father Christmas? No, that was almost a year ago. She'd been too busy, always too busy. The drive from Chicago to Springfield took 3 hours. Sarah made it in 2.5, her BMW flying down I-55 while her mind raced faster. She'd meant to visit. She'd meant to call more often. She'd meant to check on him after Mom died. But there'd been the Morrison trial, and then the partnership vote, and Dad always said he was fine. "I'm fine." That's what he always said. "Don't worry about me." And she'd believed him because it was easier than the truth. Sarah's last real conversation with her father played on loop in her head. 8 months ago, a 5-minute phone call squeezed between meetings. "How are you, Dad?" "I'm fine. Sweetheart, how's work?" "Busy. Really busy. I've been meaning to come visit, but you don't need to do that. I know you're swamped. Maybe next month?" "Sure. Whatever works for you." She'd never called back to set a date. Now she was crying so hard she could barely see the road, mascara running down her face, not caring that she looked like hell. Let the other drivers stare. Let them judge. She deserved it. Her phone rang. David, her husband. She almost didn't answer. "Where are you?" His voice was tight with irritation. "The school called. Emma's soccer practice. My father's in the hospital." A pause. "Is it serious?" "They said if I want to see him alive, I need to come now." Another pause, longer this time. "Sarah, you have the Jacobson deposition tomorrow. You've been preparing for months." Something inside Sarah snapped. "My father is dying." "David." "I understand that, but no, you don't understand. I haven't seen him in 8 months. I missed his birthday. I missed Thanksgiving last year. I missed every Sunday dinner Mom used to make us come home for. I chose work over him every single time. And now he's dying, and I can't—" her voice broke. "I can't miss this." "What about Emma's college fund?" "We need your partnership bonus." Sarah hung up. She turned off her phone, threw it in the passenger seat, and drove faster. Springfield Memorial's parking lot was half empty when she arrived at 9:30 p.m. Sarah left her beam into a no parking zone and ran through the emergency room doors, still in her court suit and heels, briefcase banging against her leg. "Thomas Sullivan," she gasped at the front desk. "I'm his daughter." The receptionist typed slowly, maddeningly slowly. "I see you. Room 14. 3rd floor. Take the elevator." Sarah was already running. The ICU was quiet, sterile, filled with the rhythmic beeping of machines, keeping people alive. Sarah found room 14 and stopped in the doorway. Her father lay in the bed, unconscious, surrounded by tubes and wires and machines. He looked so small. When had he gotten so small? He'd always been tall, strong, the man who could fix anything, explain anything, make anything better with a cup of tea and a book quote. Now he looked like he weighed 130 pounds. His cheeks were hollow. His hospital gown hung off his shoulders. His skin had a gray tinge that made Sarah's chest tighten. "Oh, Daddy." The word came out as a sob. She moved to his bedside, took his hand. It was cold, thin. She could feel every bone. When had he lost so much weight? Why hadn't she noticed? "Because you haven't seen him in 8 months. A cruel voice in her head answered. because you were too busy becoming partner. A nurse appeared. Are you family? I am his daughter, Sarah Dre. Hayes will brief you shortly. Your father is very ill. What happened? There's a foreign object blocking his airway. Dr. Hayes is the best surgeon for this kind of procedure. She'll explain everything. Sarah nodded, not trusting her voice. She pulled a chair close to the bed and held her father's hand, watching his chest rise and fall with mechanical precision. The ventilator breathed for him. How long had he been unable to breathe on his own? Memories flooded back. Dad teaching her to ride a bike. Dad staying up all night to help her finish her college applications. Dad walking her down the aisle at her wedding. Crying even though he'd tried to hide it. Dad holding baby Emma for the first time, whispering, "She has your mother's eyes." When had she stopped being his daughter and started being too busy? The last thing she'd said to him 8 months ago, rushing off the phone, was, "I'll visit soon, Dad. I'm just swamped." She never did. Sarah pressed her father's hand to her cheek and cried, "I'm sorry," she whispered. "I'm so sorry. Oh, please don't die. Please, I'll do better. I promise I'll do better." But Tom couldn't hear her. He was somewhere far away, fighting for breath, fighting to live. A movement in the doorway made Sarah look up. A man stood there, uncertain, familiar. Michael. Her brother looked terrible. His clothes were wrinkled, his hair unwashed. He'd lost weight, too, not as much as Dad, but enough to be noticeable. Dark circles under his eyes, a hollow look that made him seem 10 years older than 42. "Sarah." He didn't move from the doorway. "How long have you been here?" "Since the ambulance came." "How did you know?" Michael hesitated. "I was nearby." "Nearby? At 8 o'clock at night?" He didn't answer. The silence stretched between them, awkward and heavy with things unsaid. They hadn't spoken in 6 months, not since Dad's birthday dinner that neither of them attended, both making excuses, both avoiding the house that still smelled like Mom. "Why didn't you call me?" Sarah asked. "I figured the hospital would—" Sarah studied her brother, really looked at him. His jacket was cheap, worn at the elbows. His shoes had holes. His watch, the Rolex Mom and Dad gave him for his MBA graduation, was gone. "Michael, are you okay? We're not here to talk about me." "When did you last see Dad?" Michael's jaw tightened. 2 years ago." 2 years? But you live 15 minutes away. We had a fight. He told me to leave. I left." Sarah remembered that fight, vaguely. Something about selling the house. She'd been too busy with the Morrison trial to pay attention to family drama. "What did you fight about?" "Does it matter? He's dying, Sarah. We're too late." "Don't say that." "Why not?" "It's true." Michael's voice was bitter. "We abandoned him. Both of us. Me with my pride, you with your career. And he's been dying alone for 5 years. That's not fair. Isn't it? When was the last time you saw him? 8 months ago. And before that? Christmas? 14 months ago. Did you notice he'd lost 40 pounds? Sarah's silence was answer enough. Michael laughed, but there was no humor in it. Neither did I. Because I've been watching him through the window like a coward for 3 years. Too proud to knock on the door. What? Every night. 3 years. I check on him, leave groceries, pay his bills, cut his grass at 5 in the morning so he won't see me. because the last thing I said to him was, "I hope you die alone like you deserve." Michael's voice cracked. "Looks like I'm getting my wish." Sarah stood, moved toward her brother. "Michael, don't." He stepped back. "I don't deserve comfort. Neither do we." Before Sarah could respond, a woman in scrubs appeared in the hallway, late 40s, dark hair pulled back, professional expression that couldn't quite hide the exhaustion in her eyes. Family of Thomas Sullivan. Sarah and Michael both turned. "I'm Dr. Rebecca Hayes. I'm the surgeon who'll be operating on your father." She studied them both, her gaze lingering a moment longer than necessary, searching their faces for something. "What's wrong with him?" Sarah asked. "Your father has a foreign object lodged in his esophagus. It's causing a severe infection and blocking his airway. Without surgery, he'll die within 48 hours. The words hit like a physical blow. "What kind of object?" Michael's voice was steady, but his hands were shaking. Dr. Hayes paused. "A ring? A ring." Sarah couldn't process it. "How did he—" "We believe it was swallowed intentionally, approximately 3 months ago. There was a psychiatric evaluation at the time that indicated," she chose her words carefully, "complicated grief response." The room spun. Sarah grabbed the doorframe for support. "You're saying he tried to kill himself?" Michael said flatly. "I'm saying he was in significant emotional distress." "What kind of ring?" Michael pressed. Dr. Hayes met his eyes. "A wedding band, engraved Forever Emily, 1907. Sarah and Michael looked at each other, equally confused. "Emily," Sarah said. "Who's Emily?" "Mom's name was Margaret. I was hoping you could tell me," Dr. Hayes said, her expression unreadable. "Your father has never mentioned anyone by that name?" Both siblings shook their heads. "Well," Dr. Hayes continued, "perhaps you should ask him about it. If he survives the surgery, what are his chances?" Sarah's voice was barely above a whisper. Dr. Hayes didn't sugarcoat it. 5%, maybe less. "The ring is lodged near major arteries. Your father's age and the severity of the infection complicate everything. It's a high-risk procedure. 5%. Michael repeated the number like he couldn't quite believe it. "I'm the best surgeon for this type of extraction. I'll do everything I can." Dr. Hayes paused. "But there's something else you need to know. The surgery will cost $87,000. His insurance lapsed 3 months ago." Sarah felt the ground shift beneath her feet. "What? That's impossible. Dad was always meticulous about—" "I'm sorry. According to our records, the policy wasn't renewed. Someone will need to make payment arrangements before we can proceed. The hospital requires 50% down by midnight." And Sarah checked her watch. 10:15. Less than 2 hours. "I'll figure something out," she said automatically, her lawyer brain already calculating. Emma's college fund had $45,000. Not enough, but it was a start. "I don't have it," Michael said quietly. "I have $247. Sarah turned to stare at her brother. Michael had been a CFO, had made $250,000 a year. "What happened to your money?" "It doesn't matter." "Michael, I said it doesn't matter." His voice echoed in the ICU corridor. A nurse looked over, frowning. Michael lowered his voice. "Just figure it out. Sarah, you're the one with the fancy job in the BMU." Dr. Hayes watched this exchange with clinical detachment. You have until midnight. I'll be preparing for surgery. The consent forms are at the nurse's station. She turned to leave, then paused. One more thing. Even if he survives the surgery, your father's prognosis long-term isn't good. The psychiatric evaluation mentioned memory issues. You should be prepared for difficult conversations ahead. She walked away, leaving Ndra and Michael in the fluorescent-lit corridor, the weight of impossible decisions pressing down on them. Sarah pulled out her phone, turned it back on. 17 missed calls from David. She ignored them all and called her bank instead. First National, how may I help you? I need to make an emergency withdrawal from my savings account. $45,000. That account requires dual authorization for withdrawals over $10,000. We'll need both account holders to... It's an emergency. My father is dying. I'm very sorry, ma'am, but policy requires... Sarah hung up, called David. He answered on the first ring. Where the hell are you? I need you to authorize a withdrawal from Emma's college fund. $45,000? Absolutely not. David, my father is dying. The surgery cost... Sarah, that's our daughter's future. We've been saving since she was born. My father is dying, Sarah repeated, her voice cracking. I need this money. No, your father made his choices. Emma's education is our priority. Come home. Sure. David. The line went dead. Sarah stared at her phone. 12 years of marriage, and this was what it came down to. Money or family? Her husband had made his choice clear. She scrolled through her contacts. Her mother-in-law, no. Her law partners. They'd want to know why she'd abandoned a multi-million-dollar case. Her friends. She realized with a sinking feeling that she didn't have friends anymore, just colleagues and clients. I can sell my car, Michael said. It's worth maybe $2,000. Sarah looked at her brother, really looked at him, the worn jacket, the hollow cheeks, the desperation in his eyes. Michael, what happened to you? He was quiet for a long moment. Then, I quit my job 7 years ago to take care of Mom. Sarah's world tilted again. What? Kate, Mom got sick, really sick. She didn't want you to know who said you were up for partner. Didn't want to distract you. So, I quit. Took care of her full time. 2 years. But Dad was traveling. That's what we told him. That he was traveling for speaking engagements. That he was visiting old colleagues. But he wasn't. He was here. He just doesn't remember. Early Alzheimer's, undiagnosed. Sarah felt like she couldn't breathe. You took care of Mom alone for 2 years. Someone had to. Why didn't you tell me? Would you have come home? Would you have given up your partnership? The question hung in the air between them. They both knew the answer. I sold my house, Michael continued. $180,000. Used it for experimental treatments insurance wouldn't cover. Maxed out every credit card. Mom lived 6 extra months because of it. 6 good months. Worth every penny. His voice was flat, emotionless. Jennifer left me, my wife, said she wasn't competing with my mother's ghost. Divorce finalized 6 months ago. I lost everything. Michael. Sarah reached for him. He stepped back. Don't. I made my choices. I don't regret them. But I can't help with the money. I work mall security 3 nights a week. I live in my car. Sarah's throat tightened. You live in your car. In the hospital parking lot. Actually, it's convenient. Why didn't you tell me? What would you have done? Sarah sent me a check. That's not what I needed. Then what did you need? Michael looked at her with hollow eyes. I needed you to be here. I needed you to help carry the weight. I needed you to see that Dad was dying too. Just slower. But you were busy. You're always busy. The truth of it hit Sarah like a slap. She'd been so focused on her career, on making partner, on proving herself, that she'd missed everything that mattered. A hospital administrator appeared, clipboard in hand. Family of Thomas Sullivan, I need to discuss payment arrangements. We need more time, Sarah said. The banks are closed. I can't access. I'm sorry. Without payment by midnight, we can't proceed with the surgery. Sarah looked at Michael. Michael looked at their father through the glass. Tom, unconscious and dying, unaware that his children were bargaining over the cost of his life. Let me talk to Dad, Michael said suddenly. Maybe he has something we don't know about. He's unconscious. Let me try. The nurse allowed them both into the room. Michael went to Tom's bedside, took his hand. Dad, can you hear me? Nothing. Dad, it's Michael. I need to know if you have any money saved. Anything. Tom's eyes flickered. His fingers twitched. Dad, squeeze my hand if you can hear me. A slight pressure. Barely there, but real. Do you have savings? Any money, anywhere? Tom's lips moved. The ventilator made it hard. But he was trying to speak. Michael leaned closer. What? Dad? Desk. The word was barely audible. Drawer? Key? What key? Oh, bank. Box? Then Tom's hand went limp. The machines beeped steadily. He was unconscious again. Sarah and Michael looked at each other. Safe deposit box, Sarah said. At the house. We need to go now. They ran. The operating room was a cathedral of steel and light at 3 a.m. Rebecca Hayes stood at the scrub sink, washing her hands with methodical precision. 15 seconds on the palms, 15 on the backs, between each finger, under the nails. The ritual calmed her, gave her time to compartmentalize. In 6 minutes, she would cut into her father's throat. He didn't know she existed, might never know, if he didn't survive. And Rebecca still hadn't decided if that would be a tragedy or a mercy. The surgical team was already in place when she entered the OR. Tom lay on the table, draped and prep bed, his throat exposed and painted orange with antiseptic. The anesthesiologist looked up from his monitors. Vitals are as stable as we can get them. But he's weak. Rebecca, very weak. Rebecca nodded. She took her position at the head of the table, accepted the scalpel from the scrub nurse. The weight of it was familiar, comforting. In here, she was in control. In here, there was only anatomy and precision and the clear logic of medicine. Let's begin. The first incision was perfect. Rebecca had done this procedure hundreds of times, could do it in her sleep. The endoscope slid down Tom's throat, the camera feeding images to the monitor above the table. There, the ring, embedded in angry, inflamed tissue that had tried and failed to expel it for 3 months. The esophageal wall was thin, weakened by infection. The carotid artery pulsed 2 millimeters away, close enough that one wrong move would mean instant death. Significant granulation tissue, Rebecca narrated for the record. Extensive infection. I'm going to need microforceps. The nurse placed the instrument in her hand. Rebecca guided it down the endoscope, reaching for the ring, her mother's ring, the ring Emily had worn on a chain around her neck for 48 years, the ring she'd pressed into Rebecca's palm with her dying breath. "Be careful," Emily had whispered. "It's all I have left of him." Now it was killing him. Rebecca grasped the ring with the forceps. Gentle traction. The tissue resisted. She adjusted her angle. Tried again. The ring shifted slightly, but didn't come free. More irrigation. I need better visualization. Saline flooded the area. Blood pressure monitor beeped 80/50. Too low, but holding. Rebecca tried a third angle. The ring moved. She applied steady pressure. Suddenly, a gush of dark blood filled her field of view. Arterial bleed. The scrub nurse's voice was sharp. "Suction!" Rebecca's hands didn't shake. Not now. Not when it mattered. The suction cleared the blood for a moment, long enough for Rebecca to see the tear in the vessel wall. Small, but catastrophic. BP dropping, 70/40. Rebecca's mind raced through options. Clamp the artery. Not enough room, direct pressure, temporary at best. She needed to get the ring out first, then repair the damage. Heart rate climbing, 120, 130. Rebecca pulled. The ring came free in a rush of blood and purulent drainage. She dropped it into the specimen basin and immediately reached for the suture kit. "VTAC," the anesthesiologist's voice cut through the room. "He's coding." The heart monitor's steady beep dissolved into a frantic alarm. Tom's heart was no longer beating in rhythm. It was quivering uselessly, unable to pump blood. Start compressions. Yet Rebecca's hands moved automatically, suturing the artery tear while the nurse pumped Tom's chest. It was nearly impossible to work while the body moved beneath her hands, but she had no choice. Charging defibrillator to 200, Rebecca finished the last stitch. Clear. Everyone stepped back. The shock jolted Tom's body. The monitor showed flat line. Then still VTAC, charging to 300. Clear. Another shock. Another terrible moment of waiting. The monitor showed chaos. Then slowly, painfully, resolved into an irregular but present rhythm. "We've got sinus tachycardia, BP coming back up, 60/30, 65/35. Rebecca's hands were steady as she finished repairing the artery, but inside her heart was pounding. She'd almost lost him. For a moment there, she'd been seconds away from letting her father die on her table. Would that have been easier? She could have said she'd tried. No one would have blamed her. The odds were always against him, but her hands had kept working. Muscle memory, years of training, the oath she'd taken first, do no harm. Closing now. Her voice was calm, professional. Let's get him stable. 20 minutes later, Tom was sutured, bandaged, and being wheeled to the IC. Rebecca stripped off her bloody gloves and walked to the staff restroom. She made it into a stall before her legs gave out. She sat on the closed toilet lid and cried, silent tears that she'd been holding back for 6 months. Ever since her mother died, ever since she'd started searching hospital records for a man named Thomas Sullivan. Ever since she'd decided that she needed to know who her father was, even if he didn't need to know her. She'd saved him, the man who'd abandoned her mother, the man who'd loved Emily, but married someone else, the man who had 3 children, but only knew about 2. Rebecca pulled the chain from under her scrubs, her mother's ring the match to the one now sitting in a specimen container, covered in Tom's blood. "I saved him, Mom," she whispered to the empty bathroom. "I don't know why, but I saved him." Her pager buzzed. Another emergency, another patient who needed her to be strong. Rebecca wiped her eyes, washed her face, and went back to work. The safe deposit key was exactly where Tom had said it would be, taped under the bottom drawer of his desk, in the study that still smelled faintly of Margaret's lavender sachets. Sarah and Michael had torn through the house like burglars, opening drawers, searching closets, growing more frantic as the minutes ticked by. They'd found the key at 11:20, giving them 40 minutes to get to the bank. Except the bank was closed. They stood in the driveway, breathing hard, staring at the small brass key that might hold the answer to everything or nothing at all. "We'll come back in the morning," Sarah said. "First thing, when it opens. Dad might not have until morning." Michael turned the key over in his palm. Where else would he keep important documents? They went back inside. The house was a museum of their parents' life together. Oh, boy. So, together? Wedding photos on the mantel. Margaret's reading glasses still on the coffee table. Tom's jacket on the coat rack, probably hanging there since 20. Sarah opened filing cabinets while Michael searched the bedroom. Bills, insurance documents, tax returns, all meticulously organized by year, Margaret's handwriting on the labels, neat and precise. Then Sarah found it, a manila envelope, tucked at the back of the bottom drawer, labeled simply, "Margaret Private." Her hands shook as she opened it. Inside were PDFs printed out, 45 of them, numbered sequentially. Letters, each one dated, starting from 19 and ending in 20. "Michael," Sarah called, "you need to see this." Her brother came downstairs. They sat together on the living room couch, the same couch where they'd watched Saturday morning cartoons as children, and began to read. Letter 1, dated June 15th, 1908. "My dearest Tom, this is the first letter of many. I'm writing these for you to read after I'm gone because there are things I need you to know that I can't say while I'm alive. I know about Emily. I've always known." Sarah's breath caught. Michael leaned closer, reading over her shoulder. "I know you loved her first. I know she broke your heart. I know you married me because you couldn't have her. And Tom, I need you to know I chose this anyway. I chose to love you enough for both of us. I chose to spend my life earning the love you couldn't give me at first. And I succeeded. Maybe it took 5 years, maybe 10. But one day, I looked at you and saw that you loved me back, differently than you loved her, but real. That was enough. That was everything." They read through the night. Through letter 5, where Margaret described meeting Emily by accident in a grocery store in 1990. Through letter 12, where Margaret confessed she'd known Tom kept Emily's ring hidden in his sock drawer. Through letter 23, where Margaret wrote about Tom calling out Emily's name in his sleep, and Margaret pretending she didn't hear. Each letter was a small heartbreak. Each one revealed a woman who'd loved so completely that she'd made room in her marriage for a ghost. By letter 40, both Sarah and Michael were crying. "I never knew," Sarah whispered. "I never knew Mom went through all this." "She never complained," Michael said. "Not once." Letter 45 was the longest, dated March 20, 1 year before Margaret died. "Tom, by the time you read this, I'll be gone. I hope you're not angry. I hope you understand. I loved you enough to share you with a ghost. Emily was your first love. I was your last love. Both matter. Both were real. I need to tell you something I've kept secret for 30 years. In 1995, I met Emily. It wasn't planned. I saw her in the produce section of Walmart, and I knew her immediately from the photos you thought you'd hidden so well. We talked just for a few minutes. She told me about her life in California. She told me she never married. And Tom, she told me about her daughter. Emily had your baby, a girl, born in October '97, 9 months after you left. Emily never told you because her parents forbade it. They moved across the country. They made sure you'd never find her. Her daughter's name is Rebecca. She's a doctor now, a surgeon. Emily was so proud. She showed me pictures, Tom. Rebecca has your eyes, your mother's nose. She looks like a Sullivan. I kept this secret because I didn't want to hurt you more than life already had. But now I think you deserve to know. You have 3 children, not 2. Rebecca doesn't know about you either. Emily kept it secret, wanting to protect her from the pain of rejection. Find her, Tom. Find Rebecca. Tell her about her father. Tell her about Emily and about me and about the complicated, beautiful mess that is love. It's not too late. I've left money for you in my life insurance. $340,000. Use it. Don't hoard it out of some misguided guilt. Use it to live. Use it to find joy. Use it to connect with our children, all 3 of them. I'm not angry about Emily. I never was. You gave me 41 beautiful years. You gave me 2 incredible children. You tried every day to love me, and that effort mattered more than perfect love ever could. Live. Tom, please live. For me, for Sarah and Michael, for Rebecca, for yourself. Forever yours, Margaret. The letter slipped from Sarah's hands. She and Michael sat in stunned silence. Rebecca, Sarah finally said. To Rebecca Hayes. She's our sister, half-sister. She paid for Dad's surgery. Sarah stood abruptly, pacing the living room. She knew. She had to know. That's why she transferred here. That's why she stopped. Oh, God. She had to operate on her own father. A father who doesn't know she exists. Michael picked up the letters, carefully stacking them. We need to tell Dad. He's unconscious. He might not wake up. Then we need to tell her. Ooh, Rebecca, she deserves to know that Mom knew about her, that Mom wanted Dad to find her. Sarah checked her watch, 11:50. We still don't have the money for the surgery. As if on cue, Sarah's phone rang. The hospital. Mrs. Sullivan Chen, this is Springfield Memorial Financial Services. I'm calling to inform you that payment for Thomas Sullivan's surgery has been received in full. You're all set. Sarah's mind reeled. What? From who? The payment was made anonymously. We're not at liberty to disclose the source. Your father is currently in surgery. Dr. Hayes will update you when the procedure is complete. The call ended. Sarah and Michael looked at each other. Rebecca, they said simultaneously. They drove back to the hospital in Sarah's BMW, the letters stacked carefully on Michael's lap. The roads were empty at midnight, streetlights casting orange pools on the pavement. I was a terrible daughter, Sarah said quietly. We were both terrible. No, you gave up everything. You were here. I chose my career over Mom and Dad every single time. Michael was quiet for a moment. I chose martyrdom over communication. I never told you Mom was sick because I wanted to be the hero, the good son, the one who sacrificed, and I resented you for not knowing, even though I never gave you the chance. Why didn't you tell me? Pride. The same thing that made Dad refuse help. The same thing that's killing our family. Sarah turned onto the highway. I'm leaving David. Michael looked at her, surprised. He wouldn't authorize the withdrawal for Dad's surgery. He said Emma's college fund was more important than Dad's life. Sarah's hands tightened on the steering wheel. I've known for years that the marriage was hollow. I just didn't want to admit I'd made a mistake. But tonight, when he said that, I saw it clearly. He's not my partner. He's my colleague. And I don't want to live like that anymore. What about Emma and Jake? They'll adjust. Kids are resilient. And maybe they'll learn something I didn't, that family matters more than money, that love matters more than success. They reached the hospital at 12:30. The surgery was still ongoing. Sarah and Michael went to the waiting room where they'd sat just hours ago and settled in for another vigil. At 2 a.m., Michael fell asleep in his chair, exhausted. Sarah couldn't sleep. She read through Margaret's letters again, absorbing the quiet heroism of a woman who'd loved without condition, who'd made space in her heart for her husband's pain. At 5 a.m., the overhead speakers crackled Code Blue, or 3, Code Blue, or 3. Sarah jumped up. Michael woke instantly. That's Dad's room, Sarah said. They ran to the surgical corridor. But security stopped them. Through the windows, they could see chaos medical staff rushing, machines alarming. Hayes bent over the operating table with desperate focus. Sarah gripped Michael's hand. They stood helpless, watching their father die. 15 minutes of hell, 15 minutes of alarms and running, and medical personnel shouting numbers that meant nothing to Sarah but clearly meant everything. Then, slowly, the chaos subsided. The alarm stopped. The staff stepped back. Dr. Hayes straightened, said something to her team, and continued working. Is he alive? Sarah whispered. Michael squeezed her hand. I think so. At 6:15, Hayes emerged from the OR, still in bloody scrubs, surgical cap pulled down, exhaustion carved into every line of her face. Sarah and Michael stood. Hayes removed her cap. He's alive. Sarah's legs nearly gave out. Michael caught her. But barely, Rebecca continued. He coded twice. The surgery was complicated. The next 48 hours are critical. Thank you, Michael said. Thank you for saving him. Rebecca's expression was unreadable. Don't thank me yet. She held out a small plastic container. Inside was the ring, cleaned of blood, gleaming dully under the fluorescent lights. This belongs to your family now. Sarah took it, turned it over, read the engraving. Forever Emily, Tintefa. Hayes, Sarah said carefully, we found letters from our mother, letters she wrote before she died. Rebecca went very still. She knew about you, Michael said. She knew about Emily. She knew everything. Rebecca's professional mask cracked. What? Our mother met your mother in 1995. They talked. Mom knew you existed. She wanted Dad to find you. Sarah held up the letters. She wrote it all down. She wanted you to be part of our family. Tears spilled down Rebecca's cheeks. She didn't bother wiping them away. I saved him, she whispered. I saved my father. Tom woke up 3 days later. The first thing he saw was Shra, asleep in the chair beside his bed, her head tilted at an uncomfortable angle. her court suit wrinkled and stained with coffee. The second thing he saw was Michael, stretched out and on the floor with his jacket as a pillow, snoring softly. Both his children here, together. Tom tried to speak, but his throat was fire. He made a small sound. Somewhere between a cough and a groan, Sarah's eyes flew open. "Dad!" Michael scrambled to his feet. "You're awake!" Sarah was crying and laughing at the same time. "Oh, my God, you're awake!" A nurse rushed in, checked monitors, adjusted tubes. "Welcome back, Mr. Sullivan. You've been out for a while. Don't try to talk. Your throat needs time to heal." But Tom had questions. So many questions. He looked at his children, raised his eyebrows. "The ring?" Sarah said, understanding. "They got it out. You almost died, but Dr. Hayes saved you." Tom closed his eyes. Shame washed over him. They knew. They'd seen the X-rays. They knew about Emily. They knew he'd tried to die. "Dad," Michael's voice was gentle, "we're not angry. We're just glad you're alive." Tom shook his head, tears leaking from the corners of his eyes. He didn't deserve their forgiveness. He didn't deserve to be alive. Over the next 2 weeks, Tom recovered slowly. His throat healed. His strength returned, but the conversations were harder than any physical therapy. Sarah told him about the letters, all 45 of them. She read them aloud, sitting at his bedside, her voice breaking on the tender parts. Tom cried through every single one. "She knew," he whispered when Sarah finished the last letter. "All those years, she knew, and she loved me anyway." "She did," Sarah agreed. "More than you probably realized. I didn't deserve her." "Maybe not. But you had her, and she was grateful for every day." Michael told him about the caregiving, the 2 years he'd spent nursing Margaret through her final illness, the money he'd spent, the career he'd sacrificed, the marriage he'd lost. "I thought you were traveling," Tom said, confused. "I remember traveling, speaking engagements in Cleveland, a conference in Boston. You weren't traveling, Dad. You were here. You just don't remember." Michael's voice was patient. "You have Alzheimer's. Early stages. It's been causing memory gaps." Tom absorbed this. Another failure. Another way he'd let his family down. "I'm sorry," he said. "Michael, I'm so sorry. The things I said to you were said by a man in pain, a man who didn't understand what was happening to his own mind. I forgive you." Michael paused. "Because, can you forgive me? For the things I said, there's nothing to forgive. You had every right to be angry. Maybe, but I'm choosing not to be angry anymore. It's exhausting." They talked about money, about the $340,000 Tom had been hoarding, about his misguided attempt at self-punishment. "We're using it," Sarah said firmly. "Michael's debts are getting paid. Emma's college fund is getting replenished, and you're getting proper care for the Alzheimer's." "And the rest?" Tom asked. "A foundation in Mom's name and Emily's for single mothers and elderly widowers who need support." Tom cried again. Seemed like all he did these days was cry. But the hardest conversation came on the 15th day when Rebecca Hayes walked into his room for rounds, and Sarah said, "Dad, there's someone we need you to meet properly." Oh, Tom looked at the doctor who'd saved his life. She was in her late 40s, professional, composed. She had kind eyes, familiar eyes. "Dr. Hayes has been wonderful," Tom said. I'm told I coded twice on the table. You saved my life. I did my job, Rebecca said quietly. It was more than a job, Sarah said. She looked at Rebecca. Should we tell him, or do you want to? Rebecca's professional mask cracked. I don't know if I can. Tell me what. Tom looked between them, confused. Sarah handed him a photograph. This is Emily Hayes. She died 6 months ago in California. Cancer. Tom's world stopped. The photo showed a woman in her early 70s, gray-haired, but still beautiful, still recognizably the girl he'd loved at 19. Emily, he breathed. How did you... Mom met her in 1995. They talked. Sarah paused. Dad, Emily had your baby, a daughter, born in October. Said. Tom couldn't process the words. Had a baby. His baby. With Emily. She never told you because her parents forbade it. They moved to California, raised the baby alone. Tom looked at Dr. Hayes, really looked at her. The green eyes with gold flecks, his mother's nose, the shape of her face so like his own sister's. You, he whispered. Rebecca nodded, tears streaming down her face. I'm your daughter. Tom's heart broke and mended simultaneously. Emily had our baby all these years, and I never knew. She loved you, Rebecca said, every day of her life. She told me stories about you, about how brilliant you were, how kind. She never stopped loving you. I looked for her after I graduated college. I tried to find her, but her family had moved, left no forwarding address. Tom reached out a shaking hand. You're my daughter. I am. I have 3 children. You do. Tom looked at Sarah and Michael, then back at Rebecca. Will you forgive me for not being there, for not knowing, for failing your mother? She forgave you years ago. She told me to forgive you, too. Rebecca moved closer. I've been angry for so long, but I'm tired of being angry. I want to know my father. I'm 72. I have Alzheimer's. I might not have much time. Then let's not waste it. Tom held out his arms. Rebecca hesitated, then stepped into them. Sarah and Michael joined the embrace. 4 people, 3 of them strangers, 6 months ago, holding each other and crying in a hospital room. A family, broken and mended, not perfect, not whole, but real. 6 months later, Tom moved in with Michael permanently. His Alzheimer's was progressing, but slowly. He had good days and bad days. On good days, he told Rebecca stories about Emily, their first kiss under the oak tree, the way she laughed, her dreams of becoming a teacher. On bad days, he forgot Rebecca existed, and she learned to introduce herself again with patience. Sarah quit her job at the law firm. Not immediately, she gave them 6 months' notice and trained her replacement. Then she opened a small practice in Springfield, focusing on elder law. She saw Emma and Jake every day. She filed for divorce. David didn't fight it. Michael paid off his debts and started over. He took a job at the hospital, not security, but patient advocacy, helping families navigate the healthcare system. He was good at it. He understood what it meant to feel invisible. Rebecca became a regular at Sunday dinners. It was awkward at first. She and Sarah had to learn how to be sisters. She and Michael had to figure out their dynamic. But they tried. Every week they tried. But the foundation launched in March on what would have been Margaret's 73rd birthday. the Margaret and Emily Fund, support groups for grieving widowers, financial assistance for single mothers, mental health resources for families in crisis. At the opening ceremony, Tom stood at the podium, shaky but present, and spoke about love and loss and second chances. "I spent 50 years running from pain," he said. "I ran from Emily. I settled for less than I should have given Margaret. I pushed away my children. I tried to die rather than face my grief, and I almost succeeded. But my daughter saved me. All three of my daughters saved me in different ways. Margaret, who loved me when I didn't deserve it. Emily, who never stopped loving me even after I left. And Rebecca, who had every reason to let me die, but chose to save me instead. This foundation is for everyone who's running, for everyone who thinks they're too broken to be loved, for everyone who's given up. It's never too late. That's what my family taught me. It's never too late to tell the truth. It's never too late to ask for forgiveness. It's never too late to start again." The audience applauded. Sarah, Michael, and Rebecca stood together in the front row, crying and proud. That night, Tom sat at Michael's kitchen table and wrote a letter. His hands shook partly from age, partly from medication, partly from emotion. "To my children, Sarah, Michael, and Rebecca, this year has been the greatest gift. I know my time is limited. The Alzheimer's is progressing. Soon I won't remember your names. But right now, in this moment, I remember everything. I remember that I'm loved. I remember that I'm forgiven. I remember that family isn't about perfection. It's about showing up, even when it's hard. Thank you for showing up for me. I love you, all three of you, forever. Dad." He sealed the letter, placed it in the drawer marked "To be opened after I'm gone," and smiled. Outside, snow was falling. Inside, his family was gathering for dinner. He could hear Sarah's laugh, Michael's voice, Rebecca's quiet comments. He was home, finally, completely home. Sometimes we spend so much time building our lives that we forget to live them. We chase success, avoid difficult conversations, and convince ourselves that tomorrow is soon enough to say, "I love you." Then one day we wake up and realize we've lost years we can never get back. Tom Sullivan almost lost everything before he understood what truly mattered. He had money in the bank but lived in poverty. He had children who loved him but lived alone. He had so much to say but swallowed his pain instead. His story reminds us that pride and fear are thieves that steal our most precious moments, but it also reminds us of something more important. It is never too late. Never too late to tell the truth. Never too late to ask for forgiveness. Never too late to rebuild broken bridges. The people we love are waiting, even when we think we've pushed them too far away, even when we think we don't deserve another chance. Family is not about perfection. It is about showing up, especially when it is hard. So here is the question that matters. Who have you been avoiding? What conversation have you been postponing? What would happen if you reached out today, right now, before tomorrow becomes never? Share your thoughts below. Your story might be exactly what someone else needs to hear.